How's it? I haven't been on for a while. There's so much going on in the world that, it's just mad, isn't it? So I thought I picked up on one of the things that's going on in the zeitgeist, a little bit more lighthearted. No less controversial, I'm sure. So there's 100 British versus 100 American, who would win? And I just thought you need a bit more context. Which 100 American, how are they choosing it? And I'm probably overthinking this, but just 100 random people. I suppose you could do it like that, but each time you did it, you get a different result. So I just thought, supposition thinking, if you had categories, so because 100 versus 100 is very vague. So when whoever introduced this, were they thinking a lottery system, or is it meant to be like versus like? So I thought, let's have some categories. Category number 1, cross-dressers. In the old vernacular, transvestites. I hope I don't offend anyone by that. I don't mean it offensively. So I'm not particularly au fait with the cross-dressing world, particularly. There was a movie in the 80s that was brilliant. It was an Australian one, which I can't remember the name of. But I did a little bit of sort of rooting around, like 5 minutes on Google, and it seems like there's a lot more cross-dressers and pageants and parties and all sorts of things going on in America than there are in Britain. So there you've got an advantage. America's got an advantage because they've got a bigger pool to choose from. And they just seemed, a lot of them, and there were a lot of big ones, and compared to the ones I saw in the British. So I'm going to give that one to the Americans. You win the 100 cross-dressers versus 100 cross-dressers. And I must say, some of those cross-dressing women, or cross-men, women, are beautiful. Now, fatties. What about fatties? So I've lived in America and I've lived in Britain. And I'm no skinny myself, but I'm not a fatty. And American fatties are the real proper ones, the ones that need like 3 extensions for the airplane seat sort of thing. You don't see many of those in the UK. So I'm going to say Britain wins the fatties because they'd be able to fight for a few seconds longer than the American fatties. Gun owners. So if there were 100 American gun owners, 100 British gun owners, the Brits would get absolutely slaughtered because we have very strict gun laws here. America doesn't. So they could have hand grenades and AR-15s and God knows what else. And here we'd have a couple of shotguns. You're allowed to have shotguns for pest control and shooting in the country. You're allowed to have hunting rifles. Very strict controls though, and there'd probably be the odd old blunderbuss that they could dig out of their grandfather's attic or something. So 100 American gun owners, 100 British owners, it would be a slaughter. Next one's going to be controversial. Police. 100 American police, 100 British police. There are good and bad in both. I just think that there's a lot of bad ones in America. In the UK, they've got to have a degree. It's a chosen profession, whereas a lot of the police that I see in these videos where they just, adrenaline comes over, they have no training, and they just unload a clip into, a suspect and shoot bystanders and all the rest of it. So, but if it's just cop versus cop, street cop versus street cop, Americans going to win because they're all armed. British Bobby on the street, never armed. If it's no guns, the British would win, I think, because they're used to not having to rely on a weapon. You can have mace and a baton and all the rest of it, but they're used to that sort of hand-to-hand sort of scuffles. Now, if it's the SWAT, what you call it there, or the armed police over here, I think that they're both probably reasonably better trained than the average copper. With guns in America. In the UK, they're highly trained. Both, there's probably ex-military in both. I think that the training and the because I think every region's got a SWAT team, so you can't have excellence across 50 states in the SWAT. So you can have some good, some bad. I think that the British, because they go through a very stringent selection process, a lot of ex-military, as I said. It would be tight. It would be a lot of blood, but I think that the Brits would probably just nudge that one. If it was 100 randomly picked Americans and 100 randomly picked Britons, but it had to take place on a neutral venue, let's say India. The Brits would win by forfeit because most of the Americans wouldn't be able to find their way there. I have a son who's autistic, so this is meant lightheartedly, something I joke with him about. 100 autistic, 100 autistic. It would be a mutual forfeit because autistic people generally, and this is a huge generalization, there is nothing they would hate more than to be forced to be within a group of 200 people, let alone the fact that they're mostly gentle, kind souls, so they wouldn't want to hurt anybody. So they wouldn't want to be there. So there wouldn't even be an event. So we'll call that a draw. Academics. 100 American academics, 100 British academics. The British would win because I reckon a lot of the American academics wouldn't fight for America at this point. At least not under Trump. So I think the Brits would win that one, again by default. Maybe there's some academics in Texas, who'd show up. I don't know. Firemen, another noble profession. I just watched a documentary about the boys that went up the World Trade Center when all of that was happening, and they were hearing the bodies and the debris and the smoke, and I mean, just the firemen in any country are noble creatures. I think that having lived in America, seeing the trucks there and the man, and I don't know. I think that they're probably both great, but I think that the American firemen will probably win that one. Okay, we don't want to leave hot women out. Okay, but I am not going to incur the wrath for your enjoyment, the wrath of womankind. So I'm going to say I don't know who'd win, but it would be a fuck of a great catfight between 200 gorgeous women. That's all I'm saying. Politicians. In the Reagan era, both Bush eras, I'd have given it to America fairly comfortably. A lot of ex-military in there, a lot of sort of law enforcement as well. Britain's less so. It used to be like 60, 70, 80 years ago, there was a lot of military, but I think the Reagan, Bush's era, even Obama era, I would have given it to America. But because you'd have to have 51 of the 100 Americans would have to come from the Republican Party, and they have no backbone currently, they'd just be sort of flopping around and burping funny sounds with little Cheeto bursts of dust coming out of their mouth. So I think the Brits would win that because it would be sort of 2-1. Military. This is going to be controversial. Both militaries have fine, and I'm a big military supporter of both countries. Family history and stuff like that. The best in America, the Deltas, and the best in the British, the SAS, SBS. Paper thin. I think because the SAS and British forces generally have less air support, and less equipment and toys and all the rest of it, I think that they probably sort of make do a bit more. And if it's just man on man, I think that the SAS would would do it, but it would be brutal and it would be unpleasant and it would be tight. All right. Lastly, rugby players versus American football players. It's an age-old debate. Obviously, I have my preference, an ex-rugby player. I think 100 on 100, the rugby players, so the average in play time for NFL is about 5 minutes over 4 hours. And you're not allowed to have 100 offense and 100 defense. You only got 100. And no commercial breaks. Okay? So I think that the rugby players, they would be strategic. They're big guys, they're some massive guys, but they run for 60 minutes. So they would run around for 5 minutes, dodging. And then the NFL players would collapse, and the rugby players would win. So, have I missed any obvious ones to do a comparison? I think, fairly even. I think the Brits may sort of edge it, but that's just because I've selected them. So if you've got ones that you think would be better, and if you think I'm full of shit, I don't want to hear from you. This is a bit lighthearted. Obviously, I'm going to be faux objective, but it's a bit of nonsense. Whoever came up with this, it's a bit of nonsense. So I'm just adding to the nonsense. All right. Cheers.